In this video tutorial, we'll be talking about how to properly configure your Torchmate for driver software to operate your new accessory, the plate marker, to your table. And to start off with, after you've mounted the plate marker to the table, and depending which electrical outlet that you plugged your plate marker into, referencing the small black box with the two electrical outlets, we'll need to determine what output line actually activates that tool. Please make sure that your machine or universal machine interface box is plugged into an electrical outlet as well. Otherwise, when we go through the above in this video here, we won't see any activation of the tool. So to begin on finding out what output line activates your plate marker, you'll want to go up to Configuration, select I/O, and output lines. The output lines are just stationary line commands that we can manually activate to find out what tools activate on the table. So in this instance, usually by default, output line 1 is what activates your plasma cutter or your height control to come down and sense the material. I will just simply type in a 2 for 2, a 3 for 3, a 4 for 4, 5 for 5, 6 for 6. And go ahead and select OK to get out of the configuration window. Click on the AUX command or auxiliary tab, and you'll notice now we have a 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. What we're going to do is independently activate each one until your plate marker is activated or you see the needle hit the plate. If you do not have air hooked up to your plate marker, if you walk over to the plate marker itself, there are two relays located on the back. They will illuminate red when activated. If they do not light up, go ahead and turn off number 2 and proceed on to the third one. And you're going to repeat this process until you see the appropriate output line activate the plate marker. So say we stop at 4 and we see the needle come down and start hitting on the material, or we see the red LEDs illuminate on the back of the plate marker, and we've determined that, say, output line 4 activates this tool, go ahead and shut it off, and we're going to go back to Configuration, I/O, Output Lines. And since we know that output line 4 works, go ahead and delete. And rename the appropriate output line that activated your tool. And if we want this display in output box, go ahead and activate these for both tools. Instead of being able to go to the auxiliary tab, you'll have quicker access. They'll put these tabs in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. Go ahead and select OK. And now you'll have a plasma and a plate marker. And then the other option that we turned on in the I/O monitor off to the right created two more tabs, so you can actually activate manually the tools. So if you're in the G-code screen, you still have these tabs right up here. Okay, now that we know that we've found out the appropriate output line for the tool being activated, in this scenario, for me, I'm pretending output line 4 works. So if it was 2, 3, or 5 for you, remember that number, because we're going to go right back to Configuration, Programming, and we're going to select M-code definitions. Now, for your plasma on, I'd like you to change that M-code to 12, the plasma off to 13, and you should have in your setup file a plate marker on and a plate marker off. If you don't, go ahead and type in the 52, 53, plate marker on, plate marker off. But in order to find out, or to be able to activate the appropriate output line, we need to go to line 4, 1 meaning on, 0 meaning off. So if yours was activating on output line 2 or 3, put the 1 in line 2 for on and the 0 for off for the plate marker off. Now we're going to go down to the M-Code to Execute Macros window, and we're going to start with the Multi-Tool Start macro, and I'd like you to change that number from 22 to 50, the Multi-Tool Stop to 51. In the first new 50 macro window, click on the drop-down window, and we're going to go to tool number 1. Equals 1, space then is tool number 1. I'd like you to change your M50 to an M12 and select OK. There's nothing else I'd like you to change in this window. Select OK, and we're going to go to the new M51 Multi-Tool Stop macro. And again, we're going to go to tool number 1, and I'd like you to change that number to 13. Nothing else to change in this window either. Next, we need to go to the M-Code Executions window, and we're going to go down to the full feed rate move, and I'd like you to change your 20, or yours might be at 22, to 50, and we're going to leave all other times at 51. Now with these changes, we're going to go ahead and scroll down to the Tool and Tool Library window. And if you don't have a description in for tool number 2, go ahead and set this to plate marker. Press OK, and I'd like you to immediately go to File and choose Save Setup. Okay. Now we've configured the driver software to be able to run a multi-tool file, but the next thing that we need to do is we need to define the tool offset, and there's a real easy way to do this. First, I'd like you to go up to your torch or tool window and choose Plasma. Next thing what you want to do is, if you have a height control box, go ahead and turn it on and enable the cut. Put a piece of random scrap material up underneath the torch, and you want to make sure your program coordinates are set to 0. What we're going to do is we're going to go up to our Plasma, or if you don't have these tabs, click on the Auxiliary tab. And we're going to go from Plasma off to Plasma on. As soon as you click this OK button, the torch will come down, sense, back off, and fire and pierce. As soon as it fires and pierces, go ahead and shut it off. Don't leave it piercing for too long. You just want to see an immediate pierce and let it retract back up to the top. The next thing you want to do is click on your jog feature and go ahead and start jogging either X positive or Y, Y positive, Y minus. And what we want to do is we want to get your plate marker needle directly over that blast hole. So when you start getting closer to that pierced hole, go ahead and click on slow and continue jogging. And then you can, if you have another pair of hands, you can have your friend push down on the needle until you can get that needle to go through that pierce hole that you just placed when you did the Plasma on. Now if you really want to fine tune it and get it dead spot on, you have this continuous tab here. Select 0.01 increments, and each time you click X positive, Y negative, X negative, Y positive, it will move 0.01 at a time, so that you can really fine tune the center of that needle in that pierce hole that you made. Once you're on the spot, go ahead and go back to continuous, because otherwise if you go and start jogging, it'll only be jogging in 0.01 increments. You need to go up to the coordinates window, select Define Tool Offset, click Plate Marker, put a check mark in X and Y, click Set. You have now successfully defined the tool offset, the distance or difference between the two tools. Select File and go to Save Tooling. If you want to make a backup copy of that, you can go to File, Save Tooling As, and save it to a thumb drive or CD or desktop, documents, or to another computer. It's not bad to have a backup file. Okay. Driver software and tool offsets are actually properly configured. We're going to hop right over to the Torchmate CAD program, and what we're going to be setting up is the machine output feature. And it's important to go to Machine first, and we're going to go to Machining Defaults. Your selected driver, they have a bunch of them here in the list, is the Torchmate Dual Tool driver all the way down at the very bottom. And what I'd like you to do is, if you do not have a check mark in selected, go ahead and select one at this time and click Apply. Then go ahead and close out of the window. Just a basic drawing just to get you just a relatively good idea on how the multi-tool option actually works is I'm just going to go ahead and do the basic circle and square. I'm going to go ahead and just make this a 1-inch circle. And then I'll just draw a 2-inch square. Alright, zoomed in, we're going to zoom into the piece. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit F3 to select both objects. Hit F7 to zoom into selected objects. Some shortcut keys we can go through, as well as alternate S cycles on the show fill. So for a multi-tool file, it's best to leave the show fill feature turned off. I'm going to hit the letter C and then the letter E on my keyboard to center everything up. Hit F7 to bring the object back into my view. I'm going to left click outside of the image so that nothing is selected. Click on the circle. And I'm going to immediately go to Machine, Create Toolpath, Online. We're going to go ahead and click on Basic Cut. And it's important that we put a feed rate in for this multi-tool file, because when we output the code from the CAD program, it's actually going to output the actual feed rates as well. So if you want a really good line with your plate marker, 30 to 35 inches a minute, can get you in a pretty good smooth line. So I'm going to type in 35. And the next thing is that you need to create a curve compensation or a tool for your plate marker. Now, I have a bunch of them already created up in here for different size tips and tools and things of that nature, but we'll go over on creating a new one. I'm going to label this one Plate Marker 3. Go ahead and close this window out here. I'm going to go back into my tool library window. Okay, so we type Plate Marker 3, and the diameter of the bit is about 0.02, and we need to make sure Turret, which is the tool to use, is set to 2. So Plasma will be Turret 1, Plate Marker will be Turret 2. We go ahead and select Add, and now I have the new tool added into the list. And just double check for yourself that your diameter is at 0.02 and the turret is set to 2. Go ahead and click Close, and then in your drop-down window, choose your new tool that you actually made. Okay, and always, just for me, I always go to the lead in, lead out feature, and I just always double check to make sure that these are off, because it's going to come down directly on the line. We don't need lead ins or lead outs for a plate marker unless you really want to have them. Go ahead and select OK, and now we have our first online toolpath. Go ahead and select your outside object, and we're going to go immediately back to Machine, Create Toolpath, Mail. Select your basic cut, and go ahead and choose the appropriate plasma tip that you're going to be using on the table. So if this is, just some 1/8 inch mild steel, 40 amps, maybe at about 100 inches a minute, we'll go ahead and we'll choose one here. I just got a basic default one here. The feed rate, we're going to set to about 100, providing that this is a 45 amp tip that we're using on 1/8 inch mild steel. Depending on which plasma cutter that you have and your test from your line speed test that you performed, just make sure that you type in the appropriate feed rate. Because again, when we output the code, it's outputting the feed rate as well. Go ahead and check your lead in. In this case here, we're going to be sticking with a line, a length of 1/8 of an inch, and the entry point is going to be at a 45-degree angle, and we select OK. Notice the curve compensation lines here. We got our 0.02 curve for the plate marker, and we have our mail curve of 0.03 on the outside. If you do not see this thicker line here, it could be that your show tool diameter isn't turned on. Me personally, I like to see the curve on the actual image, so we're going to go to View and turn on show tool diameter, and this will allow you to see the nice thick line. We're going to go ahead now and we're going to delete the original image. Go to View, uncheck the show tool pass, press F3 on your keyboard and hit delete. Everything disappears. Now we're going to go back to View, turn show tool pass back on so that we can see our tool path. And I'm going to actually carry this down to the lower left hand corner of our material blank. So I'm going to select it, drag it right down into the corner. I'm going to hit F7. Now we're ready to output the code. We're going to go to Machine. We're going to select Output. Okay, this is your output window. What I always like to do, and this is a just as maybe a precaution for everybody, because we want all our files to come out a complete success, is that we want to make sure that at the beginning of the code we see tool number 2, indicating that the plate marker is going to go first. And we jump down here to tool 1, which says, hey, I want the plasma cutter to go ahead and take over. If you don't see that and it says tool number 1 at the top of the screen, simply close out of the machine output window, and we need to properly sequence our items so that we tell the plate marker what to plate mark and when the plasma cutter is time to turn on. So I'll go to Layout, Sequence, Start Sequence by List, and check here in the list to make sure that we have our plasma objects to be cut last. So if you did want to change the actual cut order, let's just say this is just an example, and this is not what you want to do to your file. So I'm going to take my last object, tell it to be number 1. If I tell this to actually happen, it's going to go ahead and start plasma cutting first, and then it's going to try to plate mark the circle on the inside. So the whole point is here we want to have the plate marker go first, the square on the outside to go last. So we're going to go ahead and choose the appropriate way. Plate mark, plasma, select OK. Go ahead and reselect your item. Go to Machine, select Output. Go ahead and click on the Numerical Control Manager, and you can just double check tool number 2, tool number 1 for the square. Go ahead and click on the Save tab, select OK. Choose where you want to save this G-code file, desktop, documents, your thumb drive. I'm just going to go ahead and pop this into the desktop, and we call this plate marker test 1, and select Save. This is one option on how you can output the code from the CAD program. If you're proficient in your sequencing of the parts, you won't need to look at this numerical control manager. You can immediately go to this machining tool here, which looks like a pair of scissors, and you just give it a name and go ahead and save. So those are the two options on how you can output the code. So now we're going to go right back over to our Torchmate driver software. We're going to go to File, Open G-code. We're going to go right to the desktop. Here's our plate marker test 1 file that we created, or whatever you named your file to be. Now to begin, instead of using your plasma torch to jog into the lower left-hand corner of your material, start with your plate marker. Just go ahead and start jogging, either medium or fast, to get to your material. So as you get closer to the lower left-hand corner of the material, go ahead and change your jog speed down to slow. And if you're right by the table, you can press the plate marker needle down, and to let you know you're as close to the lower left-hand corner of the plate, or wherever you actually just want to zero out the plate marker. Once done jogging, go ahead and select your appropriate tool from the torch window or tool window. Zero out your program coordinates. Make sure you have the cut enabled on your height control box, the appropriate amperage setting on the plasma cutter, as well as the tip that applies to the amperage on the plasma cutter. Your plate marker, there is an air pressure needle at the top. You can set that to about 12 to 15. I like to kind of start in the middle area of that dial. Then on the needle itself, there's a little black grip that's labeled off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Turn it up to 4. That's going to be a good starting point, and you can fine-tune that handle dial on the needle back and forth until you get a really nice looking smooth line. Select G-code, go ahead and hit start. So you should see the plate marker actually running, then switching over for the offset for the plasma cutter. And if the steps were followed, you should have successfully completed your first multi-tool file. If you have any questions at all, please call us at 866-571-1066 at extension 3. And we'll look forward to talking to you in the future.